Yeah. I think you come first.
Some would quibble with that.
Good
Good
evening.
evening, everyone. No, go ahead.
ahead.
No. You started out. So I'm new to this. You do
Okay.
it.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the mayor's Downtown South End Neighborhood Meetings, which is, we're changing the name of this meeting to the Downtown South End Neighborhood Meetings. Before I begin, I just want to briefly say that we are going to be having a pedal party on Flagler. You'll be getting, all the neighborhoods will be getting this probably tomorrow. This will be June the 29th from 9 to 11, and it's going to be on Suma Beach, and we'll be blasting that out to you guys. But Wendy Morris asked me to just mention that to you guys. Also,
And what's it about?
it will be, Miss Wendang knows about it. I won't take her glory, you know.
It would,
Talking to the mic, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me find a mic. Hello, Wending, City Traffic Engineer. We've been working on different concepts for Flagler Drive, and this is a planned project as it is part of our resurfacing program, and we want to look at how we can reconfigure our existing bike facilities along there. So we're proposing to do a mini pop-up family event that we invite everybody to come out with their bicycles, and we're working with Public Works to see if we can put down some wheel stops and see how comfortable you'll be in certain situation. So we're hoping that everybody gets to try, a potential new protected bike way along Flagler Drive. And the proposed project is, there's two pieces to it. Part one is really a roundabout reconstruction for safety improvements at Gregory Road and Flagler. The second piece of it is taking Gregory all the way up to Worth Court. That's over almost a mile and a half worth of bike facilities. So we want to do resurfacing, but we want to take this opportunity to provide safe and protected bike facilities along Flagler Drive.
You will have extensive public outreach ahead of time.
We
right?
have had several public outreach at this point. This is our last attempt before we finalize our design and go report back to the mayor and city commissioners. And we want to finalize our design so that we can procure a contractor and start construction.
And Commissioner Lambert, and then Gail.
I just wanted to thank staff for this because they have been out a number of times to the Cena Neighborhood Association meetings, but we did ask for this extensive community outreach, to your point, Mayor. And we met with residents on Flagler, some of which who are here tonight, and we came up with a really great idea to showcase not only the project, but also get people on the street, on their bikes, and have them look and feel what it will look like when it's done. So I just want to say thank you for that. And encourage everybody to share it with your neighbors, because we really, when we talk about getting community feedback, we can't know what that is if you don't come out and share with us. And I think this is a great opportunity to do that.
Gail?
Okay. I know we're not going to have a discussion now, but I want to throw it out so perhaps you or someone else would be able to get back with me with an answer. The quandary is a number of people don't understand why there is need for a curb. You have Dixie Highway, you have Okeechobee, you have many other corridors that do not have any type of barrier. And I think we're all looking for an answer as to why Flagler Drive, our premier showcase corridor, is going to have a concrete barrier. So that's the question that at some point, if someone could get back to Cena, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
I saw you shaking your head.
Well, they're not going to have a barrier.
Right. Now, let's put the
so,
facts out there, please.
Quickly to clarify, the proposed design is a protected two-way cycle track so that biking, right now there's bike lanes that goes with the flow of traffic. So we want to put both bike lanes on one side by the water so there's no conflict of driveways or side streets. And the curb, the concrete curb, is essentially providing protection for, between the bicyclist and the car.
There's not a barrier.
There's no barrier. It is 6 inches high.
All right, and you've shown this as you've been out around with the public outreach.
Right,
Okay.
and this time we want to bring the physical curb out to show people what it looks like.
Okay, all right. That was just an announcement. You can get on with the regularly scheduled program, right?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
And what date is the pop-up?
We are proposing on June 29th at the end of this month.
From 9 to 11. And there'll be a blast going out.
Okay.
Thank you. Take it away, Mr. Marchese.
Good evening, everyone. I know that one of the main concerns tonight would be the home invasion last month in the south end. So I'll run through the report, and then we brought Detective J.C. Viteri, one of the lead detectives on home invasion here, and he can kind of answer some of your questions and hopefully quell some of your concerns. So for this report, year-to-date, the south end will be down 14.2% in Part 1 crimes. For the month of April, there was 112, 488 for the year. As you can see, here's the comparison from 2018 and 2019. And by sector, Jose, you always help me out with this. Sector 21,
What is the draw line there?
I believe that's deep south. Bunker Ranch south.
Oh, Dreher Park.
There was 4 residential burglaries, 2 auto burglaries, 4 larceny.
Yeah, that's Dreher Park. Neighborhood Association.
In Sector 22. Belvedere to Bunker. And as you can see, most Part 1 crimes was larceny offenses.
That's Cena, isn't it?
Takes in Cena.
Yeah. Cena and Prospect Park.
Sector 23. Larceny offenses ran to Part 1 crimes. 24 had auto burglaries, then that should be Grandview Heights.
Yes.
Downtown, the majority of our Part 1 crimes are larceny offenses.
Are these
Can-
breaking into vehicles?
Yes. So the general patrol activities, 161 arrests, 56 being felony charges, 5 weapon charges, 8 narcotic charges, wrote 403 citations, and interviewed 208 people. Some of the arrests, this would be the 1100 block of South Flagler robbery arrest. These offenders committed another armed robbery up north after a car chase with North Palm, I believe it was. These guys were apprehended.
They were apprehended in North Palm?
Yep.
Wow.
Whoops, went too fast. This burglary arrest, this was more of a night out drinking. They were brought back home to the gentleman's house and where they committed the crimes. And this was an auto burglary arrest, and actually this was a good job by the residents. One of the neighbors witnessed him breaking in, held him down until we got there and we made the arrest.
They held them down?
Yes.
Wow. Love our city's residents.
Again, I'm going to bring up Detective J.C. Viteri unless anybody's got any other questions besides the home invasion. Go ahead, Gil.
Could you just give a clarification? It says here, 0 prostitution charges. And I know there have been a couple of sting activities with arrests. Is
probably
there
be
a particular reason why it's
It would
not?
probably be in the north end that they've done it.
Okay, so you only, okay,
Not for, that wasn't citywide, that was south side.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Detective Lettieri?
Good afternoon, everybody. Detective J.C. Viteri. I'm assigned to the Violent Crimes Division, Criminal Investigations Division, West Palm Beach Police Department. I'm here to answer any questions in regards to the home invasion robbery that happened in the south end of the city on May 21st of 2019, just a couple, 3 weeks ago. If you allow me, I can go down to some details. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and then I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. On Tuesday, 2 victims were in their residence. Tuesday, May 21st, at approximately 6:30 in the morning, 2 individuals from Broward County, primarily Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They drove down here, up here into West Palm Beach after committing several crimes down in the northern part of Broward County. They used the master bathroom window as a point of entry, or POE. Unfortunately, there were no cameras pointed in the direction where these individuals parked their vehicles. However, as they entered the house through the master bathroom, they left what we call latent fingerprinting. Those were eventually processed, and we had a potential investigative lead of what we call down in Broward County to one of the subjects that was involved. Eventually, the City of Fort Lauderdale Police Department was able to give us another investigative lead with the second individual that was involved. The 2 names provided initially were Cedric Thomas, who is a convicted felon, multiple-time convicted felon, who is also a PRR offender. That means basically he's a prisoner release reoffender. Anything that she may commit after he or she is released from prison, it automatically validates that person to spend a very long time in jail after they commit the crime. Mr. Tavares Brown, who had been recently released in March of 2019 for the same crime of robbery. My partner and I, we traveled down to Broward County and interviewed these 2. Mr. Tavares Brown, to our luck, provided a full confession as to what happened or what transpired on that day on May 21st of 2019. In short, he explained that he was on the streets. He had been homeless for about 3 weeks. He had been up for a long time using street terminology for what we call Molly. It's an MDMA kind of pill that keeps you up at very different days at a time. Mr. Tavares Brown was then offered a gig, from what we understand, with Mr. Cedric Thomas, and the spree of robberies started down in Broward County. They then both together drove up to Palm Beach County into West Palm, and that's how they targeted the residents on the 5200 block of South Flagler. Ultimately, thank God, we arrested both of them on outstanding warrants. They are currently down in Broward County with 0 bond warrants. And it is my understanding, and I'm certain about this, is that they will not see the day of light again due to the fact that they are convicted felons on a PRR status, which is what I explained before. I'm here to answer any questions. I'm sure you guys got some questions, and I may have some answers for you.
Do you have, do you need anyone to attend the hearing from West Palm, from the neighborhoods?
Well, I can explain the process. Usually when there is an outstanding warrant for a particular person, that person is in another jurisdiction, in this case, Broward County, that person needs to be extradited into Palm Beach County. Once that extradition process takes place, he or she sees a judge. That process is called first appearance. At that particular moment is when either the victims or any witnesses or any supporting bodies, including associations from the neighborhood, can show up and request that the individuals may be held with no bond. In this particular case, however, you don't need that because they don't qualify for a bond due to their status being that they are convicted felons. Yes, ma'am.
Could you just tell us the time of the incident? Because I think that's important for
Yes,
the
ma'am.
neighbors to be sensitive to.
Yes, absolutely. At approximate, it is my understanding or our understanding that the individuals drove into West Palm Beach at approximately 6 a.m., 6 in the morning. Wow. The victims were able to dial 911 about 45 minutes later. Immediately after that, we were able to ping the victim's phone to the address or general location of Lantana and Congress, where they were actually being mobile. They were heading south back into Broward County. So if I can tell you a time frame, it's between 6 o'clock in the morning and 6:30.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Commissioner Lambert?
Thank you. Did they give any indication in their confession as to why or how they targeted this house?
I'm sorry?
As to why or how they targeted this house?
Yes, ma'am. During my conversation with Mr. Brown, he explained that they were on a lam, per se, to target and/or find the perfect house where they can commit a burglary. Okay, we need to understand the difference between a burglary and a home invasion robbery. They're surprised that there's somebody in the house after they had broken into the residence. So at that point, they had no choice but to, unfortunately, tie the victims and/or separate them into the bedroom so that they can collect their items and take them with them. They had committed maybe about 2 crimes down in Broward County, and they decided to drive north because the attention was already hot for them in Broward County, and that's the reason why they ended up in Palm Beach County, West Palm Beach primarily, to commit the crime.
And fingerprints is how you caught them, right? It was just the fingerprint? No-
Correct.
No film footage, no
You
video?
got to talk into the mic, I'm sorry.
It was solely from the fingerprints that you were able to,
Well, it's a collaboration of a lot of things. We got the investigative lead from Broward County, the Fort Lauderdale Police Department, coupled with the fingerprints located at the entry point, the master bathroom window, that provided us an investigative lead to follow up on these 2 individuals. Yes, sir.
This sounds like something out of a TV show, you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Were the victims able to tell you in any fashion that the men were sensitive, that it was 2 senior ladies, and that basically they didn't rough them up or scare them even more than, unfortunately, whatever took place?
Generally, from my years of experience, these are traumatic events. We all know that. I can tell you this, though, based on the personal communication I had with the 2 victims. They are okay. They were not hurt. The sole purpose of these 2 people to come into their home was to commit a burglary, meaning to take their property and eventually go pawn these items down the way. Luckily, one thing I left out of my explanation is that we were able to recover mostly 90% of the property belonging to the victim. So we were lucky enough to collect those items from the vehicle that we recovered. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Mayor?
Just a comment, and I want to compliment you and the West Palm Beach Police Department for doing such a fine job in this case. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
attention. Yes.
Is there any other tips that maybe we don't normally hear, or reminders of tips that we do hear that the neighborhood associations can pass along to residents to help prevent things like this from happening? Or in this case, where it might be completely random and unpreventable, other cameras or other tips that you might suggest for residents to have in place to help you collect data?
What I tell, this is my professional opinion, as 15 years of service with the West Palm Beach Police Department, what I tell people every single day is cameras being number one. A small investment saves a big headache, right? Somebody that you don't recognize in your neighborhood, that's something that we've been passing along the years. Somebody that you don't know, any vehicles in the area that you don't recognize, give us a call. I'm sure that we're more than happy to respond and make sure that you guys are okay.
We do have, go ahead.
No, if you have a comment, please.
Answer Commissioner's question. If anybody listening or in this room, if anybody in this room would like, they can call Officer Seth Buxton. He's our crime prevention officer. He can come to your house. He can evaluate preventive measures, security measures for you.
Yeah, Seth would come out and do an assessment of your property. He goes around and tells you you need to
You need to trim your
your
hedges.
bushes, and you need to do this, and so that is something that the police department offers to our residents. Commissioner?
I just wanted to mention too, another program that the police department has is to check on your house while you're away. So I think that's another important program. As summer comes and we're all going on vacation and being out of town, that you can enroll in that program, and officers will come by and check on your house if you're not going to be there for a period of time. Thank you.
By chance, were there any vehicles on the driveway, or the vehicles were in the garage and the house really looked vacant?
Vehicles as far as belonging to the victim?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. The victim's vehicle was untouched. It was actually in their garage with the garage door closed.
So, probably they thought there were, it was an empty
It looks-
snowbird house.
Yeah, it gives that appearance,
Yes.
even though it's quite stunning. One more thought. Senior moment, erase.
Okay. Thank you, Gail.
Anybody else? Good?
Great job.
Okay,
Thank you
thank you.
again.
Be well.
Thank you.
I did not get anything for code, but if anybody has any questions for code, I have Laura Borso, nuisance abatement manager here. If anybody has any questions, yes.
I now remember with the detective, and it could really be for Laura as well. I happen to have some wonderful neighbors who recently put in new landscape, and their hedges have grown to about 10 feet tall, 10 feet tall. I recall a couple of years ago, we had a whole issue with regard to hedges that are beyond a certain height.
Yes.
You cannot see anything in their front.
Well, we do have a
Lawn.
height restriction.
Yeah, we do.
You do have?
Yes,
And
and I
what is
think
that?
it's 8 or
Okay.
10.
I want to say 8.
I want to say 8.
I want to say 8, but I have to look it up. I don't do
Okay.
that one very often. I want to say 8,
Right,
but
fences are 8, so probably be 8.
I think it's 8.
I think it's 8, but
Yeah.
I'll find out for you.
Thank you,
There-
because-
it is a code issue.
Is
It-
yeah.
It's very concerning, and I have 4 houses on my street right now where the occupants are on vacation. And it's really a perfect opportunity for crime, and I think it's something that we have to sort of look at again and be sensitive to.
Send somebody down there tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. They'll just ride down my street.
Well, it's either
And
going to be
they'll
somebody
see.
that I can find or me, because we're running on a skeleton crew this week.
It's not priority. We'll do it another
No,
time.
no,
Laura.
no. I'll get it.
No.
I'll get it
We'll get it
tomorrow.
done. We'll
I'll
get
get
it
it done.
Yeah,
No
because
problem.
they're down to a skeleton. No.
We won't mention the address because it's on
Yeah,
the
no.
TV, so.
Yeah, that's why I don't
I'll
want
get
to
it.
say anything.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Code?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Susan Landeryu. I'm on the board of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and I live at the Strand on Evernia Street. And this, I'll show you the picture.
But you need to send it to us so that we
Oh, I
can
will.
address it?
Uh,
Okay.
To whom shall I send it?
You can send it to me.
Okay,
And I'll take
so,
care of it.
We have empty tree pits and uneven pavers. I mean, it's just terrible. Someone is going to really hurt themselves.
Just send it to me and we'll take care of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a?
You give it the location.
Pardon me?
Give
You
us the
just give us a
location.
location and we'll
Okay.
take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else for code? All right, great.
Could I just want to make one comment,
Yes.
as always. After 20 years of struggling, I could honestly say Dixie Corridor is looking nicely fluffed up. Our Belvedere Corridor, if anybody's driven down, you've seen that massive new flag on the flagpole at McDonald's.
Oh, yeah.
That has been a long saga. It's been accomplished by code, and new business, big business on Belvedere. So after 20 years, we're finally getting to
Good.
look fluffed up.
You're having a new development there on the old Prospect Place.
Yeah,
Well, that, yeah.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you,
Gail.
Laura.
thank you.
Now, the rest, on your agenda, you'll note that there's engineering, public works, and utilities. There were a lot of issues that were sent in. So what I would like to do is, I would like to have the people that are here from those departments address the issues that Flamingo Park, Historic Prospect Park sent, the DNA sent, and Mango Promenade sent. And they will be discussing the issues that you submitted. I would like to have any questions held until they address the issues, because it is extensive what you guys have sent. And we will discuss it afterwards. So take notes, and we'll answer the questions afterward, okay? Thank you. We'll address the DNA first, because they have to leave.
Trying to get us out of this?
Yeah, you have a DNA, you have an answer to the DNA. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Poonam Kalkat, Public Utilities Director. Josh used to be the Assistant Director of Public Utilities, but now he's Director of Public Works, so just so that we have everybody's name here. So there was one thing, a couple of things that were on my list. One was C-Click Fix app that we were asked about, which was an app that people used to be able to take a picture and send a link and say that this is, something's wrong here, and can it be fixed? And it used to be connected to our dispatch 822 line. So that app's no longer in place, because that was a standalone app that was not working with all the different processes that are in the city. What we are doing is, there is a new program that the city is implementing for development services. It's called EnerGov, and that is going to have an app with it. I don't know exactly the timeline on it, but I'm going to follow up with development services and bring that back. I'll let Jose know, and so he can pass that on to you. But that's going to have a component where people can take any kind of pictures or any complaint, and that can come directly to the city through that program, and they'll be able to give it a ticket number and then follow up on that. The ClickFix app did not have a follow-up component to it, so it would come in, but there was no way to go back and say that somebody followed up or did something about it. So I'll give you more details of that once I find out. The second one was debris that funnels through the storm drains into Intracoastal. That there used to be a water gate near the convention center in the Stub Canal that was collecting trash, and that's been moved. The reason it was moved was because we were not getting as much trash collected on that side. So instead, that's been moved to 15th and 25th Street area, and we are getting much more trash in that area with that water gate. The downtown, all of the stuff that comes downtown coming into the Stub Canal, that actually our pollution control devices have been working very well, and the cleaning of those pollution control devices has been going well, and that's why that was moved. So if there are more questions on that, I can follow up on that. I know there was some conversation, do we want to have another water gate in the Stub Canal? We haven't seen a reason to put it. If you see something, please let me know, and we'll follow up on that. The third one was, which Josh will talk about, is street markings with utilities that do some locates, not the city utilities, but other FPL and AT&T and so on and so forth, that they mark. Sometimes they use paint that doesn't wash off. And so there was questions on some of the streets that have just been fixed and been worked on, and what have we done about it. So I'll let Josh answer that.
So basically, every utility company is a member of Sunshine State One Call, and that's it's a neutral company that when you're digging, you have to call Sunshine State One Call, and they send all the utility companies, or the people that mark the utilities for the utility companies, they send them out to the roads and they mark it. Blue is for water, green is for sewer, red is for power, yellow is for for gas, and orange is for communication. Yeah. So
6 o'clock.
Yeah. Time to go.
Energy efficiency. The lights are going out 'cause nobody's moving.
So these companies, they basically come out and they put the paint on the ground to show where the people that are excavating where the underground utilities are, so they're not damaged. The problem with that is the marks, sometimes they last a long time, especially the red marks. We ask that they use water-soluble paint, and we also ask that they follow low-impact marking, which is, the less marks, the better. But there's nothing that we can do to really enforce this. So we did, however, we have a lead locator, Jerome Simmons. He's in contact with all the utility companies and all the contractors that mark the utility or the utility locates. And he's in contact with them asking that they do practice low-impact marking. But again, there's nothing that we can do to fine these companies if they don't. It's just a lot of outreach that we're trying to do at the time.
Yeah, there is a state law, and that has to be followed. So a city can't do something different than what's in the state law already about what kind of paints and everything can be used. So we can't fine them for that reason. You can't go back. But what we can do is if you see something and you notice it's been there longer than 90 days, if you get back to us, we'll go back and check on it and see who put it, go back to that utility company as well as and see if we can do anything to clean it up. But 90 days is what they're allowed to leave it on. The problem is we can't control because they can come and mark for 90 days. That can be good for any company that's going to come in and do any kind of digging. So you can't really say, okay, just this is going to be good for just a week or 2 weeks. It's just not doable that way.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any rules about marking the?
You have to
need
talk
be in
into the mic, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sorry. Are there any rules about marking the brick pavers? I was told by one of the utility men that they were told not to mark our new pavers, but they do.
We've told our we have a contractor that does our utility locates, and we've told them not to mark the pavers, and we've told them to use offsets. But unfortunately, if there's a utility that's owned by, say for instance, FP&L, and it's underneath brick pavers, they can do a certain amount of offsets or not mark the actual pavers, but they have to mark the pavers at some point. But what we're asking some people to do, we've been working with Kevin's group, so when they get a right-of-way permit and it's in the downtown area, we're going from Okeechobee to Banyan, so from Flagler all the way to Tamron, we're asking them to pay particular attention to that area, and so they can contact us. We can be in touch with the companies so they do less marking, especially on the pavers, the newer pavers.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you, guys.
thanks.
Engineering.
Oh, that's yours, sorry.
Oh, and by the way, Josh is in charge of sanitation,
Yes.
Oh,
so, and streets.
More.
sanitation and streets, what does streets mean?
Any street maintenance.
Okay.
Any street maintenance?
Yes. Street lighting, sidewalks.
Would you also be responsible, are you working in conjunction with the Lights on Dixie Highway?
You got to talk
Or
into the
that-
mic.
Sorry. Are you working in conjunction with the Lights on Dixie Highway as well? Would you be the one to call rather than FP&L?
DOT is
Yeah.
in charge of Dixie Highway.
So you're not doing it anymore?
But I'll check with Gwen just to make sure that we can contact for that.
We'll check, we'll give you.
Well, actually, from Okeechobee to the water spill, I mean, once you make you're coming down Okeechobee and going south, it starts right there at the showroom
DOT.
place and then the college and every place else, so.
Yeah, all, Dixie Highway itself, south of Okeechobee, belongs to FDOT. And I'll be sharing that phone number with Jose for anybody to contact FDOT. Dixie, within the downtown area, belongs to the city, so from Quadrille
different.
to Okeechobee is the city.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there anywhere on our city's website that lets residents know which streets are owned by whom and where? Because I hear this question coming up a lot, who do I call about that? And
We have a GIS database that is live, but it's on the GIS website. So I'll send Jose a link. So maybe we can put that on the front page also.
On the front page of our
Website.
Website?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't even know that.
Okay.
Okay, you guys.
All right, I'm taking notes. We're going to start with, which neighborhood association is this?
This is Flamingo
Oh,
Park.
Flamingo Park, excuse me. Lake Avenue between Belvedere and Southern Boulevard, it's asking about the street sweeping. We did the project about 2 years ago as a pilot project to really study, protected bike lanes as part of our pilot project. We're about to start construction on this project for a full reconstruction, milling and paving, drainage work at the end of July. We actually, with Connect West Palm Beach, has volunteered to pick up trash along the bike lanes in this area. So we're working with them as they are a partner in our community, in the next couple weeks to do some garbage collection there. But ultimately, we're still working out the details on cleaning the protected bike facilities as it is needed for safety, but also we have to be able to maintain it. So as we're working through that details, we do have volunteers that comes out there and wants to help us clean some of these bike facilities. The other question is in reference to creating a bike lane on Alabama and L Street for walkers and bikers. We do have a proposed plans as we have come to the Neighborhoods Association about 3 times already. We can certainly look at our design and come back one last time before we finalize it to see how we can accommodate. But typically, we don't put in bike lanes in neighborhood streets that doesn't have a lot of cars because we want to have adequate parking available for everybody. So in area with high speed or a lot of vehicles, that's where we propose bike lanes. So we'll definitely take a look at this and we'll give you, we'll be reaching out to the neighborhood to give them clarifications of what we can do. There is a question in reference to the townhome opening the passageway through M&N Street. We all know that that is a pedestrian passageway. Myself have used it many times. I'm not sure if there's anything we can do. At first, we actually looked at on the east of those townhomes because there are, but that belongs to the FEC. That's a railroad right-of-way. We should not be trespassing. So I encourage us to continue to use the passageway that's there, that's right now. And so there is a question about the Caroline Crosswalk as it's entering into Grandview Market. This last year we worked on a project as part of Fire Station 4 to create a crosswalk across the street, but the design of that crosswalk across the railroad is very complex. First off, there's a utilities project that's currently underway, so we thought that would be a good opportunity for us to work together with the utilities department. But when we looked at the stub canal, as the canal is very short, if you want to provide all modes of transportation and sidewalk, we have to extend the canal itself. And then as you're crossing the street, from a legal standpoint, the city actually has to put in pedestrian gates because there are no pedestrian gates at the CSX. So therefore, it would have to be designed, constructed, and get easement from a CSX to cross that area. So even though it's a simple idea to say, hey, let's connect the line on paper, but the engineering and the funding mechanism behind it is quite complex. So from our perspective in engineering, we are still developing a strategy on see how we can provide, a project and to create a project out of this. So we're still working on it, but immediately we have addressed the concern. It's actually part of Kevin's project as he was building the fire station to provide a crosswalk. So we know that there is access there, but as you cross the Parker, it's a little challenging, and we ask for a little more patience as we're developing some other strategies. And, and Boyd Street. If you guys don't know Boyd Street is actually south of Caroline. It's There was a street many, many years ago out of, was it Pineapple? Pineapple Park that connects the Jefferson's Terminal District into Pineapple Park. We traded that crossing away to the CSX many, many years ago. And so it's very, very challenging to create a new ped crossing and gate crossing at that location. Obviously, right now, our number one focus is trying to open up Fern Street crossing as it yields more benefits for the overall downtown area. So Boyd Street is not on our priority list at this time, so that's our, and I think that was the last comment that's out of Flamingo Park. And we are moving on to Prospect Park. Okay. The parking allowed or not allowed on Dixie, this is one of the issues that we continue to have. Last time during a Mayor Commission work session, we talked about how we're studying the area. We had summer interns this week, and we're very excited. So we're working with them to do some data collection as they are going out there to measure the streets and to count cars and to see what the parking configurations look like. But again, just as Josh said earlier, Dixie belongs to Florida Department of Transportation. It's very challenging for us to make any policy changes on that street. What we can do is Ed is here, and I would ask that we have more enforcement along that area, because I know there's issues with sight distance and people parking too closely to Dixie. So we need people to be mindful. But part of the strategy that we're moving forward is that we have to see how many cars is parked on the street. Can we develop on time of day parking so sanitation can come and collect garbage, and other signage and striping strategies that we can get people to stop blocking driveways. And I think those are the three biggest things that we've seen as we're doing our site visits. So we are still working on a proposal for that area. We will come back to the City Commission to give our recommendations of that area. And most of it is really parking and within this neighborhood, parking issues. Which one over here? Mango?
No, right here.
This one? Okay. The historic Prospect Park, there are a couple things from Kevin's, but I'm going to go ahead and let him take over this one. Yeah.
All right, thank you. My name's Kevin Volbrecht. I'm the director of the engineering department. The questions that we received here was we're hoping you can add lighting to the meeting as well. Responses to the questions sent to Kevin Volbrecht in email May 25th regarding the updated citywide study, the analysis data, and error in the ranking. There was a presentation made at the Mayor Commission workshop that I did myself on May 28th, and there was an email correspondence I had from Jennifer Jackson over the weekend, and I was hoping that we would be able to have addressed those questions and answered those during the session, but apparently that wasn't done satisfactorily to her account.
Jennifer's here.
Okay. And so if I may, I'd like to just read through those questions and give you some responses to those if you'd like. So first of all, you asked, because there was originally a study done several months ago, and we published that. That was still a draft form. We had an update to it because we had some questions about how the data was analyzed. We went over that with the consultant. He gave us a revised, updated study on May 17th, and that was the basis of what my presentation was made. And that study still is not in the final form. It is still in a draft form, but I wanted to present what we had as the most current, probably more closer to being final report. And so that was the basis of why I made that presentation on May 28th. Your question about what changed in the data other than moving some of the tracks out because they were no longer relevant. Were there additional studies performed? Were the data changed? Were the ranges in the categories changed? For instance, track number 23 in the draft study moved from number 2 to 13 in the updated study. Why did so many of the scores change? Well, basically, there was nothing changed in the data. The data stayed the same. It was how it was analyzed. They started when he redid the analysis. He used natural breaks rather than quartiles. So the categorization of things changed because it wasn't just an even distribution, in fourths. It was done with some natural breaks and where the quantities or where the numbers would come up. So the assignment of the scores shifted some when you removed some of the smaller census tracts that really weren't relevant to the analysis because they were too small to really qualify for any kind of a significant input or contribution to what the analysis said. And 2 of the categories previously used quartiles instead of natural breaks. Now all the criteria have used natural breaks to assign the scores. And you can see how many census tracts received a specific score for each criteria in the scoring range and number of tracts per score. That was in the report, which I understand you don't actually have a copy of, and I could provide that to you. It might help answer some of your questions as well. And and that's detailed in that how those scores, what percentages, and what numbers ranked, whether it received a 4, 3, 2, or 1. Okay. Is there weighting within the categories? If the ultimate goal of the study was to provide adequate and equitable lighting, then would lights per mile be weighted more than all other categories? Is this the case? No, that's not the case. There's no weighting with any of the categories, so they're all considered equally. Could you please provide the ranges behind each category scores? For example, median household income. What specific ranges of income are to rank 1, 2, 3, and 4? On a side note, what does household income have to do with the lighting study? It appears that higher the income, the area is penalized. Well, as noted above, is like I said before, was that the scoring range in the table, it does not necessarily penalize somebody for having a higher income area. That's one of the categories that's examined of the 14 categories, and so that does factor into the overall score, but it doesn't necessarily penalize somebody because they live in an area where there's a higher income. It will affect what the overall score is, but I don't think it's a penalization. You said if the data is to be statistically significant, it would be good to know what the specificity of the ranges. And again, that's in the document, in the chart, that the table that you've yet to been provided. I did provide that to all the commissioners that were at the workshop, and I wanted to go through that process before I handed that out. So I think if nobody has any problem, I can certainly provide that to you. You stated in your email that the track that you're concerned about down in the Washington Road area was now number 9 versus 11. Based on the data, you're tied for number 6 with 3 other tracks, and that is correct, and I made mention of that when I made the presentation, that you all had the same score of, I believe, 31, and the tracks were ranked using Excel basically from the largest track to the smallest track, so the size of your track made you end up at number 9 versus number 6. The scores are still the same. You believe that there was an error in the grid. The lights per mile, you received a rank of 2 with a score of 11. Tract 1's 28 and number 29 also had an 11 as a score, and they were ranked ranked with a score of 3. That 1 point would have put you at a total of 32 and in the number 4 spot with 2 others. Well, in the raw scoring data, there are decimal points that separate the scoring. So in the table, it rounded those up. And when you see the actual scoring data, scoring table, you'll see that, if it was a 10.9, it showed that it was going to be a 3, whereas a 10.9 would have showed as a 2, but 11 and above to a certain range would have been a number 3. So that's why there was a difference in your total score for those, because you were very close. But the table just rounded those up. But the scores that were associated with those were accurately assigned. Let's see. That's the
I think
questions.
the last two that they sent, what monies have been spent with
Yeah.
respect to lighting?
So what monies have been spent to respect the lighting over the last year? And we have not really spent that much money. We're spending some money on, excuse me, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we really have no dedicated source in the past for lighting. The only 2 projects that we have for lighting right now on the capital improvement plan is the Okeechobee and Rosemary intersection that you might see some poles are up right now. And that project has been in the planning process, over 2 years. So that's the only project that we have. The other one that we have is actually in the Northwest neighborhood on Rosemary from Banyan all the way up to 8th Street. That's a grant project that we received from a state grant funding opportunity. And because of its grant obligations, we are providing lighting in that area. So really from the source of funding that we have that Kevin presented on May 28th is the penny sales tax. And part of that is that the study itself will help us prioritize it. But what's left from that funding is probably $1.5 million left.
That's almost 2.
Almost 2 million. And essentially, we have to figure out how we can provide the most lighting we can for the entire city with that much dollars. And that will be at the final recommendation.
And on the Rosemary project, right now, we're just currently going through the design process on that. So we've spent about $60,000 to get the design prepared for that. And then we'll go ahead and do the whatever the lighting installation that is warranted there from the design, utilizing the grant funds that we receive. So we really haven't done that much lighting in the city in the last year. So
And since we got funding for Vision Zero, does that Vision Zero have any prioritizing in the lighting?
Not so much as two things I want to say. When we apply for grant projects with the TPA, and whenever we look at corridors to apply for projects, most of the time they're safety improvements, so they will have a component of lighting, as it is. We know that it has an overall impact. But speaking with Vision Zero and how we assess these corridors, we typically start with the highest crash corridors in the city, and we've identified those corridors, which is Broadway and Palm Beach Lakes. So we have to address the highest crash area. And as we update our action plan and working on our action plan, lighting is a component for roadway safety, but because of how much funding we have, we prioritize the area with the highest crashes, and that's how we're chose to address resources that we have.
All right, so you have Mango Promenade.
yeah, okay. I'll let Wen go ahead and answer the first couple of these. So
A question in reference to Sophia Drive drainage project. It's a utilities project. I am the engineer of record on that project. We're working through some final design, and we're hoping by fall that we're going to be able to bid it out for construction. It's a very tight 14-feet alleyway that is a road, and we have
Terrible drainage.
it has terrible drainage, and that is, but right now we are challenged with, because of how narrow it is and the footing of the historic structures, that we have to, come up with a recommendations for our contractors not to impact the adjacent properties on either side. So that's what the detail that we have to work through. I can certainly share the design that I have right now with you if you'd like to see it, but it is the work mix of that project is to fix the drainage in that area.
No, it's just that it's been on the CIP as it was supposed to be put out for RFP last fall and constructed this fall. So that's one of the things of it obviously is fallen behind of the estimate. We were trying to check to see when the actual
Sure. I can update
release
the.
and construction should be started.
Sure. I can update the project schedule and let you know where that, again, this is a utilities project. I myself, as the city of traffic engineer, is the engineer of record. So we are having, we're working with each other to see how we can accomplish a lot of these projects. But I will give you an updated project schedule.
Okay, good, because it floods with the smallest bit of rain. And there's no drainage. You have, it's Loch Sophia.
It almost looks like an alley, not a street.
Well, no, I mean, it is. It is technically is an alley, but it's an alley with dreadful drainage.
Yeah.
So.
And it kind of leads into the next question that you have in reference to the parking study in that area. I do have a recommendation along with the South Dixie project that FDOT is working on. As Scott's not here tonight, but we wanted to do a neighborhood meeting that addressed both of that because they go hand in hand. So we're going to be setting up a meeting with the neighborhood association to showcase what we've been working on and some of the policies that we talked about. And as you know, this is probably, it goes back last year that we were working on a one-way ordinance as we need to look at circulation and garbage collections in that area and access. Yes.
And with the increase of restaurants in the area,
No.
it makes parking
Yeah.
even more difficult.
Yeah, and also there's been large construction in the area, and a lot of the tradespeople are parking in the neighborhoods. So you have certain times where, there's availability of parking, and you have other times where they're blocking driveways, and it's work trucks, and they're during a very specific time.
The streets are narrow in your
Yeah,
neighborhood.
they're very limited. So I think, I know that several years ago, the city presented to the neighborhood, and there were concerns for several blocks. But I think as we've had new residents come in, and as more restaurants are coming, more construction is going on, people are seeing that, we like to see what the city is coming up with, because, there is a need for something to be done. So
we'll be reaching out to you.
We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. The last question that you have is in reference to sidewalk repairs. Obviously, Josh is not here, but if you go to the Public Works website, there is a request, a form online that you can send in a request to get sidewalk repairs. We do work with each other. Maybe there's some, in the past, if there are flags of sidewalk that they can address immediately, they'll take care of it. It becomes a larger project, then it turns into a project for engineering to handle. And so we kind of tag team that efforts, but the best thing for us in our workflow is if you can utilize the website, or Public Works has an email account that you can email directly, and it gets into their list, and they address it as.
Okay, because it's an inherited request. From what I understand, there was a resident who, I'm not sure the exact date, had done that. I don't know if they did it through the website or if it was transmitted by someone else, that there were certain concerns, and they asked me to follow up about it.
Not only that, but I'll personally talk to Josh directly about this issue and see what he can do about that, okay?
Great. Yeah. Okay, good, thank you.
I believe that's all of the questions that we received.
That's all.
Well, I just want to,
We're opening for questions now.
actually, it's not a question, but I just want to confirm with you, with regard to the bridge, the building of the bridge, I had sent to you a confirmation from Mr. Angel that they will have a designated left turn lane onto Flagler Drive. Did you receive that email? I know the commissioner had received it.
I left you the voicemail about that.
Oh, and I thought that's why you were returning the call, because you read it.
Oh, no, I haven't seen it.
Oh, really? He made it very clear that the temporary bridge will not have a designated left turn lane going south on Flagler Drive. However, the permanent bridge will have a designated left turn lane. So at some other point, if we could have a conversation, or you could confirm to me that it's beyond anything that we could do, but something that the city wasn't aware of, and is very concerning for that to take place with the permanent bridge.
So thank you. I'll look into it because it really starts with the traffic study and what they projected about 10 plus years ago when they did the preliminary analysis for a bridge project. I'll take a look at the traffic study, see what the turning movements look like, and see if it's negligible. Obviously, we'll work with them to see what kind of changes we can make at this point. For a structure of this size, most likely, if it's not needed, they'll stripe it out. The span and everything will stay the same, just because from a structural analysis, they're not going to be able to make.
Well, it would be wonderful if it was really investigated now, because I've been addressing this from the very beginning whenever they began the presentations in the neighborhoods, and spoke to the city about it each time that we met. And there doesn't seem to be any confirmation one way or the other. So if you could follow through on that, it would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mary?
I just want to say that I really acknowledge and appreciate the challenges you've faced in getting the lighting installed at the intersection of Rosemary and Okeechobee. Dealing with 3 governmental agencies, specifically FDOT, the state, the county, and the city, has just been monumental. And we're so happy to see the lighting being put in, and people who don't even know they're going to be happy about the lighting are going to be happy about the lighting. The tourists and visitors that come and try to cross Okeechobee from the convention center as well as the Hilton. It's been many years in the making, and you've just doggedly pursued it, and we very much appreciate it. We have 2 aspects of that project that I wanted to address. And again, it's dealing with outside entities that control the projects. And I believe one is the lighting on Alabama, and I believe that's fallen to FP&L to implement, and we're still waiting to hear back from them. We've not been able to get a response from them. I believe the person's name who's in charge is Brad Farrell with FP&L, and we cannot seem to get a response. The second issue, and I'm not sure what can be done about this, but the freight train, the FEC, thank you, keeps stalling or stopping across many intersections, all the way from Belvedere, all the way through at least up to the Bright Line. And this has become, I noticed it previously on occasion, but now it's becoming more frequent. I don't know if it's involving, or it's due to the Bright Line trains, or the work on the exchange that I think is taking place up around 25th Street. But the traffic, when that train stops, it's in the mornings, it's in the evenings, and traffic literally is blocked for a good 10 to 15 minutes in some cases. I've timed it, and I know that it goes beyond like Palm Street and possibly even down to Belvedere. So I don't know what we can do about that, or is there a number we can call to, lodge complaints with them? I know it shouldn't be the city's responsibility. I call the 822-2222 and ask if they're aware of it, and they are. And sometimes I don't know if you can get police out there to redirect traffic, but it aggravates the traffic issues that people perceive that we have, and in many cases is outside of our control.
So the best thing that when a situation of a train happens is if you're near a crossing, there's typically a blue sign that's very, very small. It's about this size that has the number, and I've used it many times, that you can call and somebody will pick up. It's a live 24/7 number as it's required by the FEC and the CSX to have. So every crossing has a different crossing number. So when you call the number, it's a 1-800 number, when you call it, reference the crossing, and they know exactly where it's at, and they can give you a response. And in my personal situation where I've asked them, like, how long would it be? And they'll say 5 minutes, 3 minutes, or they'll give you a response. And that's the best way for any residents to get an answer immediately. Because what's going to happen when you call 822 is somebody's going to try to find me, and I have to walk out there and call that same number to get an answer. So,
Well, I'll get that number and hand it out to the 422 residents in my building.
yeah. Thank
The other
you.
thing is, if you call after the incident happened, the train have a black box, and if you tell them the date, because I've done that, they will look at the black box, and the black box will tell them that the train stopped at such at that intersection and how long they were stopped for.
Good.
They will check that.
Is there anything they'll do about it, or they'll just acknowledge
Well, I
it?
think that they will talk to the engineer if it's something that, but I do know that there was some construction that was being done south of Belvedere. But these freight trains are so long that sometimes they go
Yes.
from Belvedere, they can go all the way up to Okeechobee.
Right.
I mean,
They do. They
in,
do. Thank you.
okay.
I can assure you that they wouldn't be stopping for no reason. They obviously
Right.
have some
Yeah.
safety criteria that they need to follow. And the way that the signals work, such that other trains coming that way, or maybe the two tracks together, there's obviously a very good reason that they're doing it, even though it may be an annoyance to us. But it's really in their purview, in their operations, to control that. And I think that they're only looking out for the safety of everybody by doing what they're doing. But again, the way to find out what the problem is as Wynn suggested, is call that number, and they're most likely aware of that already when you do call, if they've been sitting there for that long.
Well, I guess my concern is there anything at all that can be done about it? Is it a temporary thing? Is it related to the 25th Street exchange I think they're doing?
I think they're doing some construction work down in the south end, all the way down to Arlington. That's what I was told about a week ago, because I called FEC about it.
Oh, okay.
Jose, let's see if we can contact the Public Information Department, FEC, and see if they have any information that we can distribute to our
Because that leads
residents.
to the perception that, we're having traffic issues, and
Especially
those
in Okeechobee.
traffic issues, exactly, are not of our making, or, they're out of our control, really. So.
Okay. Jennifer, you had a question?
Not really a question, more just a comment. I want to thank you for the information and the time that we've spent on lighting. I know that we've been persistent. And as you can tell with even the rankings, it's so closely aligned. We just want to make sure that our voice is heard for specific areas within our tract that have been recognized that we really do need lighting because there is no lighting. So we're excited about moving forward and how you're going to be looking at all of the tracks within the tracks to determine specific areas of need. We would just ask that you really look at the Washington component. It's 3/4 of a mile. We are incorporating Vision Zero as part of the entire Washington project with elevated intersections, et cetera. But again, it's about the area where there's no lighting in that 3/4 mile stretch. So, but we really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not a question.
Mayor?
A comment. This is my first meeting as mayor, and I just want to give you a heads up. We're going to be changing the format of these meetings. I'm not happy with how these have devolved into just some very specific questions. I have hired, and she'll start on Monday, a young lady in my staff who will be reporting directly to me that will deal with neighborhood-specific questions. Neighborhoods First initiative, which is what I campaigned on. We're going to have a very detailed system for logging complaints, questions. We'll be tracking the timeliness of the response, et cetera. And I think that's probably the best forum in which to deal with a number of these types of issues. And so what I want to use these meetings for is more high-level discussions, of issues affecting your general area, your general neighborhoods, whether it is parking at a higher level, whether it's the golf course, or whether it's other high-level types of issues that someone who is sitting at home watching this on TV might benefit from. I don't think residents will benefit from very narrow, very specific, but very important. I don't dispute the importance of the inquiry. I'm just disputing whether this is a proper form in which the inquiry should be addressed on a broader basis. So stay tuned. We're going to be tweaking it. And I'm working with the commissioners in each district. This is a conversation that Commissioner Lambert and I have had, and I'm also talking to the other commissioners. I want to make sure that the time you all spend here at these meetings is productive in a broader sense. And I just don't think that this is the best use of the resources of the city or of your time coming here. So we're going to be trying to tweak this process and make it, I think, a much more fruitful, productive time for everyone here. But thank you for your interest. Continue to send in the inquiries and the questions, and we'll process those. But I think we will be looking for a better way and a more productive way of using this time together. All right?
Thank you.
Speaking of that, is the next meeting the 31st of July?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Unless
Something comes up?
something
tuned.
comes up.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes?
I would like for some time in the future to have a discussion as to maybe sending out communications, letters to all the different landscapers in the city. I've mentioned this before. I have seen a tremendous amount of landscape companies that literally blow all their leaves and all the trash in the storm drains. And I even approached one gardener, and I said to him, "Didn't your boss tell you that you're not supposed to blow everything down the storm drains?" And he looked at me with a blank face and said, "No. I have a feeling that no business, landscape business, has been informed that there's a policy that you don't throw all the litter in the streets and all the landscape down the sewer to make it easier for them than picking it up." And over the past year, I've seen it violated daily with different businesses. And I know you have storm drain issues, and it's one additional, I think, factor that at least if the men are informed that they don't do it.
Maybe that's something that we could do when they come in and renew their business license, that something could be given to them.
Anything would be better than nothing, but when this, worker looked at me with such a blank look, I knew that we had a problem. And it only creates more problems for our people, for what they have to do, so.
Right, thank you. See you the 31st.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, that's a great idea about the